Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. I'm glad to have you join me today. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, we can talk directly. If you type your questions or comments into whatever platform you may be watching this video on, and they will appear here in my chat room, and I can respond to you, and we can have a lovely conversation, which I quite like about this format. Today, we're going to be talking about a new project, the next big thing, as I like to say, Witch College, and our guest is going to be Sir Ed Hubbard. But first, I do want to take a moment and recommend my Patreon at revdonlewis.com. If you like the things I do, that's a very good way to support my work. Among other things, we have our weekly chat room, which will be tonight. We have many other interesting activities there. Hello to Renee in the chat room. It's good to see you, Renee. Also, we are in the month of October, when the veil is thinning, and when better to get a reading. If you're interested in a reading, I am available to do them, and you can set one up by emailing me at donlewishp@aol.com or by instant messaging me, for example, on Facebook. And hello to Lynn in the chat room. It's good to see you. I also want to take a moment to recommend my newest book, The Corellian Book of the Dead, which has ETA of November 11th. And also our other new book, Travel Magic, which is now at last easily available. And also, we are promoting for the month of October Medium 365, a year in the life of a medium. And hello.
Hello, there you go.
Now by our guest, Sir Ed. How are you today, Ed?
I'm good. I'm excited and busy. I mean, it's October. I mean, it's a whole rainbow of emotions.
Yes, it is. Hello to Brian in the chat room. So, the next big thing, Witch College. Tell us about this.
Oh, which college? Since you have a large audience that is involved with Witch School, it was a very important moment in history, which opened September 4th, 2001, and continues today. And today it's still doing the same thing. And in that process, it taught 300,000 people a little bit about witchcraft, and thousands of people. I mean, literally, five figures of people who have now become clergy over the years.
Mm-hmm.
It spawned so many different. The Corellian Nativist tradition has grown, who's now under the control of it, Corellian Education Ministry, but it also spawned a lot of other traditions and groups that are unofficially not, they're out there, brought leadership into the community, built the world leaders that stand under the Parliament of World Religions. Hey, Janet. Hey, Brian. Okay. And so Witch School is this great process of teaching what has become known as the Wiccan faith. The tradition, and it continues today. Lifetime membership back then is lifetime membership now.
Now, your lifetime membership really will last a lifetime.
Right. And now I'm moving on to college. And there's two different types of colleges out there. So the first one everybody's used to is the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution of style. I guess it's the only way to phrase it. It started to really emerge of fulfilling jobs and pieces, and that was important. But there's also the other idea of a collegium, and the collegium is the idea of professional groups together, people coming together. Socrates talked about this, Plato talked about this, Pythagoras talked about it. It's why they taught in Rome and way up until almost right before the Industrial Revolution really took hold. It really kind of was important to the Renaissance. It was this idea of that. And after the end of Renaissance and at the coming of the end of it, the coming of the Catholic Church, the coming of a lot of things, it then consolidated into colleges as we know it today. And
So
so,
one of the things that's very important to me, and we've
Mhm.
discussed this, and I've discussed this here on the program, is the idea that it's not enough to just pass on what comes to us, but that we want to be constantly increasing knowledge and constantly offering more of it. So can you tell us how which college is going to be offering more than projects we've worked on in the past?
so the premise is different. It's the same premise. I've always worked from the same premise all my life. And that is knowledge is power, education is freedom. And unless you control your own education, unless you control the education, or whoever controls the education, controls the basic culture. And we started seeing that especially true of where colleges went from useful to society to be given away as many people as we can, as given as cheaply as possible. I mean, when I got my associate's degree, my entire coursework was like $4,000 for the year. And that was
Hmm.
a lot of money, but it was there. That was 12 weeks of my job as a paralegal. So I could pay off my college with 12 weeks of all my pay. Yeah, so 20% of all my checks could pay for my college. And it did.
Hmm.
And I also got VA benefits, which gave me 2 years, a lot of free college. So I got my, so basically, it was very easy for me to get my initial education. And I didn't honor it. And I will tell you, a lot of extras didn't respect it, but a lot of us did, of how cheap it was.
Mm.
Today, I think colleges really, really are not the same. They're not there to build culture, civilization. And that's what we need to have. That's what we get back to the collegium. What do we really need to advance our culture, our freedom? And so the number one thing we've got is that we're going to start with the K-12 training program that everybody's been discussing. For the next year, we're going to have teachers meeting to decide what's going to be in the curriculum, how to progress over it. And they go, oh, that's going to take some time. It's going to take 10 years to do all of this, right? But Witch School's been around for 22 and
Yeah.
Daily Spell. So we can think of those terms.
Yes.
But right away with this first year, at the end of year one, we'll have a pretty good idea of how to begin building a homeschooling network and other things that.
So we have a question in the chat room from Lily Gray. And Lily says, hello to both of you. I just started Witch School. Now that Witch College is coming, is Witch School still going to be there and active?
As active as it is today, that is in the
Hmm.
hands of Corellian Education Ministry. I am no longer involved with them directly. I'm founding. We're founding members. Don and I are no
Hmm.
longer an officer or anything else. It has become a self-breeding. So this is the biggest success of the Parliament for me. It has become a self-organizing, self-promoting, self-recreating entity. And under the Right Reverend Lori Blackman and others, they're building it out. Yes, it's very much the seminary of the Corellian tradition. And,
Absolutely.
and which college has no intentions of doing it? Well, we're going to accept which school information. We're going to accept their transcripts into our own projects, but we're not going to necessarily substitute for them.
Yeah.
We have no intention of substitute. They are a good entity, and the true goes for ATC.
Hmm.
Uh, well, how do you pronounce it again? I am so
Wilson,
sorry.
Wilstenstein Academy.
I think that's going to continue on. That's its own entity too. Let's go ahead and clear it up. Cherry Hill is its own entity. Circle is its own entity. And lots and lots and lots of schools spawned from the original witch school idea. And all of them there are their own entities. What we're talking about is getting to another level. Witch College is going to be all about how do we build our culture. Not just how do we teach people to be witches. Got lots of those. Plenty of those, right?
Yeah.
What we now need to do, but what we do need now is how to integrate ourselves into the world. Which college is about integrating ourselves into the world.
So Witch School is a fine institution. Your lifetime memberships are very valuable there, but it's a different institution from Witch College.
And one of the biggest things, so because we were founders of both of them,
Mm-hmm.
along with, well, Lisa too was with us
Yeah.
before, and we can never ever forget the exemplary software she built.
Oh my
It was
God.
genius.
Yeah.
It was genius.
Yeah.
When time wasn't there. Same goes for now. We're 2,700% more powerful, even by the closest estimations of what we were then.
Yeah.
And so we're start out with a completely different body online. And that's what I think people are. See, if I get too much ahead of my skis, I won't get people to join our us. We won't get people to do it because people are very, very afraid of the future. That's how we can phrase it. They are very afraid of the future, and then they demonize the technology and they adore the past. The next creation of any sort of education is going to be called a hyperversity. It's going to exist in the internet, even if you physically attend.
Mm-hmm.
It's becoming something more, and that's what we're dealing with. Not just one class or 1,000 classes or 100,000 classes, right? It
Mm-hmm.
could be 1,000,000 classes at the end of the day by the time it comes. But can you find and learn anything you need to, anytime you need to, anywhere you need to learn it as quickly as possible? It makes adaptation extremely valuable.
Absolutely. Now, the future is always coming, whether we're ready for it or not. And we always have to remember that we must be able to live in our own future. Um, Now, Brenda has a question in the chat room. She says, you said a K to 12 course. Is that to assist and help those that are working on homeschooling with a pagan slant?
Yes. Okay, so go to paganworld.org. Um, for everyone, you can see there we already. Okay, let me go ahead and put this in. Whichcollege.org. It is both. It is to do two things. So let me go ahead. You said to say this. Okay, so the first thing it is in the first year is what do we need to have teachers know to be able to teach this material? So we're looking at developing the material for the teachers to eventually get to a bachelor's degree in teaching and paganism or a sub certificate saying that you understand pagan subjects. The other one is homeschooling and hybrid state education, meaning not just homeschooling, but also working with legal entities that teach that will be honoring and respecting us because nobody can teach their children everything.
Hmm.
So, yes, it's both. And Jenna Callahan is leading part of that effort with me. You go to whichcollege.org and you can see that we already got a group up there. We already got a forum started. You can join that. So yeah, and we're planning to get dozens and dozens of teachers together and begin this process of building an entire system of education. Because when we have that, we'll have freedom. We'll have freedom to practice our religion in a much greater way. Education of our children is a freedom of religion and a freedom of speech issue.
Hello to Lavola in the chat room. It's good to see you, Lavola.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be important to Witch College because we're talking to them and we're planning to have international studies. I mean, with the idea of a collegium, is the idea of a collegium is a group association of individuals, professionals, and people of common interest and privileges. And like I said, this is the way we taught for a very long time and still do in a lot of ways. Free versity, and there's a lot out of there who believes that education is important and necessary. And so there's always been that, and the internet has only expanded it. We have so much more that we can learn. Now we're going to have another system with AIs who can learn for us. Where are we going to be? And that is where it comes back to learn anything, anywhere, anytime education. So we're not only going to just make it possible for you to do a K-12 course, but Khan Academy is talking. I've talked to Khan Academy for years. I've been in this field of the idea of this for a very long time.
So you've also been working with Psychic Academy.
Yes.
What is happening with that, and how are these things related?
So Psychic Academy, there was originally, so let's go back to witch school. There was originally a possibility of me returning back to witch school and introducing it through that system. But the way they want to work it, and the new leadership, which is millennial, want to have it more in their own functions. And I'm a 60-year-old man, so why would I not let them do that? But
Yeah.
I held back for a long time of starting a new school or witch college because I wanted them to be in a good space. I wanted Right Reverend Lori. I wanted them all to be in a good space. They got the Corellian Times going again. I'm so proud of them. I wanted to be in a good space before I wanted to create my next revolution. And before that is Psychic Academy. Now, Psychic Academy is going to be folded onto the same Witch College platform. If you're a student at Psychic Academy, you're going to get access to it. We'll talk about more about who can enter it. It's going to be, I think, I'm turning more and more that it's going to be a little more elite. But the idea is, I believe within 3 years, we're going to have functioning telepaths. So it's all about the psychic industry as a whole. And we'll see how that develops. But we're already teaching classes. On Wednesday will be another class. You can go to psychicacademy.co, I believe, and join that group. But only a few people are actually, we only have like 6 students. So I'm really excited about that. So I get to focus on that energy as we develop. But it's going to continue on into parts of those classes. Psychic 101 will be available January 11th. We're taught by Rev Don. It'll be a guided course, and that'll be available from day one at Witch College. But if you're in Psychic Academy right now, you're taking that course. So
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. So I think the last thing I think that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to be making this pledge available. I just got finished talking to Lady Melanie Silver, a very good friend of mine who just presented to Parliament, who's doing this amazing art that they've been showing, and she has this love of libraries. And we were talking about the fact that we're going to be building, and part of Witch College, as we're doing this, is a lending library. Not just a library, but a lending library. And it will have both virtual books, which we have thousands. People don't realize how many thousands of hours of video, audio, events that are been edited and put out, plus how many more thousands of unedited events, historical records, things of that nature that are going to be virtualized. And has been virtualized. Witch School, if you know, for the last 22 years, has had an online library. And we produce books that are common to that. But also, I guess I just found out from my friend Alan Salmi, but Melanie just informed us, our physical lending library, where you can join, take a look at our list, and for a small shipping and handling fee, borrow the books with the idea that you're going to return them. And so we're working on that, and we've been talking about all sorts of different ways to bring libraries into it. So we can't have a college without a library. That's the number one thing. And so we're going to have a pledge for about $10, so you can do that. And we're going to also work with people in other countries. I mean, South Africa has a library. And we're working with others in other countries as well with libraries, and people in other cities with libraries. So it's an expanding idea that we'll work through it. But right away, it starts with a library in Chicago. We're looking like our central facility is going to be in Chicago. For a little while, I thought it was going to be in Danville. And it might still be, but Chicago brings it to 3 million people, 8 million people, and people of the world. So it makes sense. So we're working on that. There's a lot of people working on that. So wait, Chicago.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. I guess the level. So the difference between things like witch school and possibility of other schools, and I will let them all talk for themselves, is the idea of creating programs outside of just clergy. One of
Hmm.
the ideas I think that's very important is we're going to give for festival people. So I've gone across the country many times, gone to lots of festivals. I've talked to a lot of people, and everybody's always asking me, "Why do you ask so many questions?" Well, here's why: they would love to allow more filming teams in, but they don't trust them. They essentially don't trust them to follow the rules, and they tend to be arrogant, prideful, and think they're the cat's meow, that we somehow want media of a community that rejects having their private moments filmed. And it's a very precarious balance. They have already said for our first credentials that will be offered by the festival goers, they will accept it. And I'm talking about accrediting them for how pagan festival filming. It's part of a pagan journalist certification process, a micro accreditation. But it would then say if you have one of these, that you would be able to go to a pagan festival. I'm not saying that they will allow you to film, but if you want to do a documentary or do filming, this weighs in your favor. This gives them a moment of confidence. So pagan journalism is a definite part of Witch College that I'm looking forward to developing with some of the very best people in the community that are doing this, and people I don't even know. I mean, we're so disconnected in our community. I just did a piece that was asking about credentials and my credentials. I have never seen such an impressive group of people who answered it on my page. Look back a couple of days, look for it. Oh my God, added I got like 100 comments on it of people's degrees and things like that. That's
Yes,
what we're
indeed.
building. This is what we're building it on. Not just, oh, am I a clergy member? Do you have this narrow point of view? Do you have this greater point of view?
Well, as you were saying at the start, it's about culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about any one arm of culture,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of across the board.
Yeah. Um, I'm talking to Apu. I've been talking with Blue Soul. I've been talking with them about taking the lead and have gotten very positive responses. And we're going to consolidate that about that idea of taking the lead on studies of indigenous magic, specifically Philippines first
Hmm.
and Southeast Asia. Um, I talked with others in South Africa. I've talked to Rain about possibly leading the efforts there to bring in South African, and we have some basic agreements: South African and African studies, what they call Sub-Sahara Africa. And
Yes.
there are Chris Copeland is on board to help us teach more about how building books are working and how to acquire knowledge, and not just physical books, but also cyber books and books that we live online. And that's coming in, and she's on board for the long haul, and she's done an amazing job. Again, you'll find out a lot of these people who are in the early witch college are witch schoolers who have
Yeah.
graduated to levels of authority in our society. Witch school did something pretty amazing. It not only created thousands of clergies, it's given hundreds of thousands of people out there, hundreds and hundreds of groups, and on top of it, it's created world pagan leadership, leadership on a global level, to the point where we were standing there on the stage, on the Parliament of World Religions,
Yeah.
and co-equals with all of the other faiths standing there. It may have been by the thinnest of our fingernails and the tiniest of our claws, and 30 years of hard work
Oh,
to
yeah.
get there. So people ask me about witch school. What do you want to know? It creates world leadership. It creates leadership. It creates clergy. It creates groups. It creates freedom. It creates amazing people who can do things. It even teaches you how to respond in witch wars and other conflicts. All of that's in there. And it has gone off to create so much and continues to do so. So when people are asking me about witch school, you act like that it's not there anymore. And I think it's become so institutionalized. You've gotten so used to it. But do you remember when I started it? Seriously.
It was absolutely revolutionary.
It was a revolution, period.
Yeah.
I got attacked over it. You can't
Oh
do
yeah.
schools by it. I went on to help grade school and other schools. You can't do this, but other schools will eventually do it. I mean, Zell laughed at the idea at first, along with Rich and all of the other guys in 2000. Today, it's the way to go forward. This is as much a shift as taking a school from offline to online. This is a greater shift than that. And so it's important. And I want to build it from the beginning. But Witch School did everything you can imagine. I want to do more. And I want to support those world leadership and our community in a new way. But oh my gosh, anyone who thinks Witch School, I'm very proud of it. I'm glad it continues.
Oh yes, me
And
too.
I'm there at their service. If they ask me anything, want me to do anything, I'm there. Of course I am. I made a promise of lifetime education. I plan to intend to keep that. And look at I've not only made the school self-regenerative. So if you ask me, what is your promise of lifetime education? What does that mean? 22 years and counting.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm very proud of Witch School also. And as we were saying, when it started, it was the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And it has gone on to do so much, particularly on the clergy making path.
Mm-hmm.
But I've often said there's not much point in living if you're not in fact living. You have to keep growing. You have to keep expanding. And there's more to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And Witch College is the next big thing to be done, and does not in any way diminish anything else. But it addresses culture as a whole. It addresses so many different issues, far beyond just clergyhood or any one tradition. And I think that's going to be a wonderful thing in itself. I think it'll be revolutionary in itself, and the technologies involved are revolutionary in themselves.
I do too. And I want people to think about ourselves differently. So I asked a while ago, if pagan parents have a child today, what do they need to know in 25 years? And while I got a lot of answers, and I'm appreciative of the answers, and I think they're important, they only dealt with the child's religious education.
Mm.
Until the witch community, which is very secular, could be in every religion. This is why it's called Witch College, right? We're espousing the culture of the witch, which has been the healer and the all sorts of different types of aspects in different societies. Will it have a pagan enclosure? Of course it will. There's also another school we're working on, pagan education, as a public school that Chris Copeland is working on with Pagan World. So I'm very dedicated in creating a lot of spaces. It says, and people will ask me, do we need all these schools? I'm like, how many schools do you think we're going to need to teach all of our people everything? Learning everything all the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
Thousands, 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, cities in every. I mean,
well, if you look here in Central Illinois,
mm-hmm.
we have a fine high school here in Danville. It's been there for well over 100 years, but that doesn't mean that it's the only high school Central Illinois needs
Mm-hmm.
To serve its population. There are a lot of them that are needed throughout the region, and it's not like one format will always be able to serve all purposes.
I think the days of those types of schools is done for.
Mm-hmm.
I think 20 years from now, governments are not going to want them, or they're going to become indoctrination centers, or the governments always have been. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you're talking about the factory school.
Yeah.
People are going to learn at home. People are going to learn differently, and that's what this is all about: getting ahead of that hyper reality of it. We're talking about a K through 12 coursework. What would we do? I mean, so our students would learn through the internet, but they would also be able to go to centers. I think educational centers are the next answer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's getting ourselves ahead of ourselves. But the Danville High School might become the Danville Educational Center.
Hmm.
And instead of trying to put teachers in there that are teaching classes in the same way, they would be teaching people not only online, but people would come in for special education or training or hands-on stuff. It could be filled with 3D printers. It could be filled with the technology. It could be much more workshop oriented. So the physical school's only biggest offer is to give those physical science an area. So we can do both.
Hmm.
There's this hybridization coming, but the internet is going to take over as the predominant way to educate and to keep records.
Yeah.
So, if I may, let me talk about the real miracle of Witch School against everything else. Witch School, through automation of the time and using the best systems of data recording, was able to make sure that everybody who signed up for a lifetime member kept their records for a lifetime. They're still there today. We have
Hmm.
a record of every major student. We've only done one major purge where we got rid of bad emails of people who never taken a class. But if you've ever taken a class at Witch School, your record is still there.
Hmm.
We're one of the very few that were able to. You go to all these other small minor schools, and one of the things you'll see, they're great, they teach, and they're solving the same problem. But with you went to Witch School, and still to the day, you say you need a certificate that shows you that you graduated the third degree high priesthood, we can issue to it. Oh, it was 10 years ago. We can still issue it. So, Witch School most important feature is its powerful mentor and administration programs and the storage of those records. Prior to Witch School, the revolution was is you had to go to somebody who was an apprentice. You could even go and take years of classes. You could even go to somebody taught by that same person and says, "Oh no, you have to start over." So many people early on have so many first degrees and never seen a second degree. So by
Yep.
creating a system of allowing people to progress, even if they didn't personally know each other in the best way, and they learned, has made this incredible global family.
Yes, indeed.
The administration and the ability to keep control of those records is what makes Witch School the most powerful school of its kind. A free and small payment public school where anyone can learn magic, the anyone, anytime, any place magical education. And it never stops doing that. That's the magic and the miracle of it. Which college is understanding we're going to need a much more sophisticated administration based on the principles we've developed with Witch School, and that we need to have all the records all the time forever, and that needs to be automated and answerable to the future. What makes an accredited school? Records. What makes an accredited school? Remember, people have taken it, have accepted, and found jobs in it. The more valuable it becomes is through accretion of time to be able to save these records and to continue on. So this isn't with the end of Witch School. This is really a beginning of Witch School. Um, I think it's going to be only grow and blossom, and I see us as very common ground. But Woods College is an independent project. It is on
Yes.
its own staff and its own people.
Yeah. And much success to both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Sir Ed. I see that we have finished up our half hour, so let us close with our prayer as we normally do, and I will see you tomorrow. And Divine Mother God, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we ask you to be with us and to guide us as we go forward, and we ask you to help us to learn all those things we need to know, and to remember that the only bad question is the one we don't ask. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, we thank you with great love and with respect, and knowing you are always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. May you be blessed now and always, and I will see you tomorrow. And thank you again, Sir Ed.
Thank you. Which